They say weddings are about joy, about the union of two souls. But sometimes they're about masks, about secrets held beneath the glitter and lace, champagne toasts hiding the sour aftertaste of betrayal. My name is Vanessa Cole, and this is the story of the day I turned a wedding into a reckoning. Theirs. And mine. I didn't plan it. Not really. Not at first. I wasn't supposed to be there, at least. Not with him. Not with my +1. The man who made everyone gasp. But Karma. She has a wicked sense of timing. The invitation came in gold-trimmed ivory, wrapped with a silk ribbon like a present I didn't ask for. Miss Vanessa Cole, ye guest. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Miss Liana Grace Hamilton, Mr. Theodore James Delacroix. Saturday, the 12th of September. Hamilton Estate Gardens, Berkshire. I almost laughed. Liana, my ex-best friend. She and I hadn't spoken in 4 years, not since the night I found out what she'd done. Back then, we were inseparable, thick as thieves, bound by university memories, secrets whispered under starry skies, dreams of weddings and careers. We even promised to be each other's maid of honor one day. But everything changed when I fell in love with Noah. And Liana, she fell for him too. I didn't see it right away, how she clung to my stories about him, how her laughter grew a little tighter every time his name came up. But then one night, one stupid, wine-soaked Friday night, I came home early from work to find her in my apartment. With him? The betrayal shattered me. Not just because of Noah, but because she didn't flinch. She didn't cry or beg or even apologize. She looked me in the eye and said, "You never deserved him." That night, I packed my bags, moved out, and swore I'd never look back. 4 years. 4 years of therapy, of rebuilding, of learning to smile again. 4 years of moving on or trying to. And now, the audacity of a wedding invitation? It wasn't kindness. It was a message, a performance. And something inside me, that part she hadn't managed to kill, whispered, "Go." But not alone. Not this time. His name is Elias Quinn. A friend of a friend, a mystery wrapped in quiet charm and impossibly sharp eyes. He wasn't just handsome, he was captivating. The kind of man who didn't speak unless he meant to be heard. We met at a gallery opening a month before the wedding. He stood by a painting no one understood and said, "Art is just a confession in color." I laughed. We talked all night. And when the invitation came, something bold and dangerous slipped from my lips before I could stop it. "Come to a wedding with me, as my +1. He raised an eyebrow. "Yours?" "No," I said, biting my lip. "Someone else's. Someone who needs to see me happy." He nodded once, slowly. "I'm in." I didn't tell him everything. Not at first. Just enough. That the bride and I were once close. That she hurt me. That this wasn't just a wedding, it was closure. Elias didn't press. But something flickered in his eyes that night. Something. Knowing. Chapter 3. Arrival. The Hamilton estate was everything I expected. Grandeur dripping from the wrought iron gates, a symphony of roses and curated charm, the kind of place that made you feel small on purpose. I wore black. Not because I was mourning, but because I wanted to be unforgettable. Elias, in a slate-grey tailored suit, looked like he belonged to another century, noble, dangerous, still. We walked hand in hand past shocked guests who whispered behind flutes of champagne. I saw Liana the moment we stepped onto the garden terrace. Her smile froze mid-laugh, her veil fluttering like a ghost caught in wind. She wasn't expecting me. And definitely not him. Because Elias, my +1, wasn't just striking. He was familiar. To her. I saw it in her eyes. Panic. Recognition. And something I hadn't expected. Fear. The ballroom shimmered with gold and soft pink hues, but I barely noticed anymore. The air had turned electric after Ava's speech guests murmured in confusion and curiosity. Forks paused mid-air, and glasses trembled slightly in hands that no longer cared for toasts. Lydia's eyes were on fire. "What the hell was that?" she hissed at me, jaw tight. Who even is she? But I didn't answer, because I saw it the way Donna froze, how Jack's smile collapsed like a crumbling dam, and more importantly, how Ava's confident gaze zeroed in on them. She's not just a friend, I said finally. She's my +1, but you'll want to hear what she has to say next. Ava stood again. She raised her hand gently and said, I didn't come here to ruin a wedding, but I did come here for truth, because karma doesn't need permission to walk in. The room hushed. Let's go back 15 years, she began. Ava's voice was steady, measured, slicing through the ambient music like a scalpel. My mother, Clarissa Moore, once worked as a housekeeper for Jack and Donna, back when they were first building their restaurant. You probably don't remember Hershey was invisible to most of you. But she cleaned every floor you walked on and stayed up late washing your wine glasses. Gasps fluttered across the room like scattered feathers. She also raised your daughter, Lydia. All heads turned to Lydia. What are you talking about? Lydia asked, pale. That's a lie. No, Ava said. She was your nanny. She fed you when Donna was too busy planning menu tastings. She rocked you when you had nightmares, and she was there the night you had your first fever. I watched Donna's lips thin like paper. Jack stood up, face reddening. Enough, he barked. This is nonsense. No, Jack, Ava said coolly. This is karma. She reached into her purse and pulled out a faded folder. From it, she took out letters dozens folded and frayed. My mother kept everything. Letters Donna wrote her when she asked for unpaid extra shifts. Receipts for medication she bought out of her own pocket when Lydia was sick. And these, she held up a smaller envelope. These are photos. Photos of Lydia clinging to my mother like a daughter would. Lydia sat stunned, staring ahead. Your parents erased my mother, Ava said. When she got sick from working overtime and collapsed in your kitchen, Jack told her to leave and never come back. No medical help, no compensation, no thank you. You fired her like trash. She was undocumented, Donna blurted. We couldn't risk. She was human, Ava snapped. And she died poor, in a small room, forgotten by the people she served like family. And no one this grand day when you celebrate love you should remember the woman you trampled to get here. I heard someone cry softly in the crowd. One of Donna's sisters had covered her mouth. I wasn't going to say anything, Ava said. But when I heard how you talked about Patricia Michael's mother at the rehearsal dinner, I couldn't hold it in. You do this to everyone, to women who give everything to others. And you think no one will say anything because you're rich. The silence was volcanic. Jack stood up. Leave. You're not welcome here. Ava looked to me. Shall I? I took her hand and stood. No. We're leaving together. But not before I say this. I turned to the guests. I loved Lydia. I was willing to overlook a lot for her, but not cruelty, not when it comes from the people who raised her, and not when she stands beside them in silence. I turned to Lydia. You could have stood up for me. You could have defended my mother. Instead, you laughed. You're not the woman I thought you were. So, not this wedding isn't happening. Gasps and a few claps erupted. I looked down at my suit. Guess I wore the wrong outfit to a funeral, because all I see here is the death of decency. Ava and I walked out together, hand in hand. A part of me thought I'd feel sad, but I didn't. I felt free. The restaurant Lydia's parents had worked so hard to flaunt went into decline. Negative press sparked by an anonymous leak of Ava's evidence to a local blog followed them like storm clouds. Meanwhile, Ava published a book titled Invisible Hands, The Women Behind the Curtain. It became a bestseller. And me? I stood beside her at every reading, every speech. I helped her build a foundation in her mother's name to support underpaid workers in the service industry. At one gala event, someone asked me, "Do you regret the wedding that never was?" I smiled. Not at all, because that wedding gave me back my voice and helped me recognize real love when I saw it. The crowd applauded. And just like that, karma was done whispering. It started clapping. 6 weeks later, the headlines came fast. Power couple restaurateurs under fire after whistleblower reveals shocking past. The wedding that never happened. Viral clip shows groom calling off ceremony mid-speech. She raised you like a daughter. The woman behind the wedding speech that broke the internet. The video of Ava's speech had leaked. Someone from the rehearsal dinner had posted it, anonymous probably, a fed-up guest who could no longer stomach Jack and Donna's behavior. The views exploded overnight. Millions saw it. Comments poured in. That woman's bravery, I felt it in my soul. The groom did what most people are too afraid to stand for the dead when the living mock them. Karma, served hot and on a wedding platter. It should have been a PR nightmare for me, but instead I became an unlikely symbol of moral clarity. People shared their own stories about family abuse, class division, unacknowledged labor. Suddenly, my inbox was full of speaking invitations, podcast requests, and media interviews. But I said no to all of them except one. The Foundation for Invisible Care, Ava's foundation, had gained traction faster than we'd hoped. With the help of a quiet donation from one of my late mother's former co-workers, we launched chapters in 3 cities to support caregivers, housekeepers, and undocumented women caught in abusive cycles of silence. Ava worked tirelessly, and I never imagined that heartbreak could lead to a mission. Meanwhile, Lydia was unraveling. I didn't gloat. I didn't wish her harm, but karma didn't need me to lift a finger. The wedding cancellation had not only gone viral, but it had also cost her and her family everything. The restaurant lost investors. Jack tried to sue Ava for defamation, but the documentation she presented silenced his threats immediately. Donna was banned from her high society club after the board cited her conduct as fundamentally unbecoming of a community patron. And Lydia? She showed up at my apartment 2 months later, uninvited. "Michael, we need to talk," she said as I opened the door. She looked tired, smaller, no makeup, no polished clothes, no mask. "I think you said everything you needed to say when you laughed at your dad's joke about my mom," I replied. Her lip trembled. "I didn't know about Ava's mom, about any of it." "You didn't need to know about Ava's mom to know mocking mine was cruel." She wiped at her eyes. I didn't want to lose my parents. They've controlled everything my whole life. I thought staying quiet would keep the peace." I let out a long breath. "And it cost you the person who actually loved you." She nodded. "I know." There was a long silence. Then she looked up and said something I'll never forget. "I thought marrying you would help me escape their shadow, but maybe I was just trying to drag you into it." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. She left without asking for another chance. That I respected. Ava and I stood beneath chandeliers in a room full of real changemakers, donors, social workers, women in healthcare uniforms, men in hospitality, survivors, advocates. She had just finished her keynote, and I was now the one stepping up to the mic. "I was supposed to be married this time last year," I said. But instead of a wedding, I got a wake-up call. Not just about the family I nearly married into, but about the world we build when we let power silence the people who clean our floors and raise our kids. I paused, looking at Ava. I lost a fiancé, but I found a mission, and a partner who walks beside Menno ahead of me or behind me, so I'll take that kind of shock any day. The applause came like thunder. Ava and I sat on a bench beneath falling leaves. She handed me a small box. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a delicate silver chain, and on it a charm shaped like a key. "It was my mother's," she said softly. "She wore it every day, even after they fired her." I looked at her, unsure what to say. "I don't believe in fairy tales," she continued, "but I do believe in second chances, and I believe that karma doesn't just punish, sometimes it repairs." I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a different box. She gasped. "I was going to wait," I said, kneeling. "But why wait when you already unlocked the best part of my life?" Her hands trembled as I opened the ring box. "Yes," she whispered, before I even asked. And that's when I realized the wedding I needed wasn't the one I planned. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be organizing retreats for caregivers and writing grants to protect invisible workers, I would have laughed. But here I was in a modest community center in Baltimore watching Ava gently coach a room full of women through breathing exercises and budgeting skills. A few feet away, a woman sat alone, hugging her coat. She looked familiar. Her eyes found mine. And suddenly I knew. It was Lydia. I hadn't seen her since that day at my door. She looked worn down but clearer, like someone who had spent real time looking inward. She waited until the session ended before walking up to Ava. "I'm not here to cause problems," she said quietly. I wanted to volunteer, if you'll let me." I tensed, watching Ava's face carefully. But Ava didn't flinch. She gave Lydia a long look, then nodded slowly. "Then you start by scrubbing the floor. That's where my mother started too." There was no cruelty in her tone, just gravity, and Lydia understood. She nodded. "I'll be here at 7. 3 months later, Lydia showed up every week. She didn't ask for shortcuts. She didn't try to reclaim the spotlight. She worked, listened, and kept her head down. It was hard to explain how watching her mop floors and serve tea at seminars became one of the most cathartic things I'd ever witnessed. Not because she suffered, but because she finally understood. And Ava? She never gloated, never punished. But every time Lydia folded up chairs or served food to exhausted nurses, Ava's mother's legacy grew stronger. That, I realized, was the deepest form of karma, not revenge, but restoration. My father. I haven't talked much about him. He stayed quiet during the wedding chaos, stoic, composed, but a few weeks after everything collapsed, he handed me a letter my mother wrote just before she passed. "Michael, love is not what people promise in bright places, it's what they practice when the room goes dark. If the woman you marry cannot sit in grief with you, she will not dance in joy with you either." I read it once, then again. Then I folded it and placed it in my wallet. That letter became a compass. And with Ava, the room was never dark for long. A letter from Donna. "Yes, Donna." She emailed me on Christmas Day. It wasn't long, just a few paragraphs. "Michael, you were right to walk away. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand the damage we caused not just to Ava's mother, but to you. We raised Lydia to chase approval, and we ridiculed anyone who reminded us of our own debt. I was jealous of your mother. She had real goodness, and that terrified me. I'm sorry, for real this time. Donna." I didn't reply, not out of hatred. Some apologies just aren't meant to be conversations. 1 year later, our wedding. It was quiet. No chandeliers, no white gloves, just 25 people, a garden, and soft string music under the trees. Ava walked down the aisle in a flowing, sun-warmed dress. Instead of a priest, we had a nurse officiated, the same woman Ava trained with during her first job out of nursing school. When it was time for vows, I took a breath and said, "Today I marry not just you, but every story you carry, every sacrifice your mother made, every hour you spent helping people who couldn't pay you back. Ava, you've taught me that love is not about being honored in public, it's about being held in private. And I will hold you forever." Tears streamed down her face. She smiled. Then she reached into her bouquet and pulled out something. A key. The same one her mother wore. "I give you this," she whispered, "not because you needed to unlock anything, but because you were never afraid to walk through the door." Later that night, Ava pulled me aside. "I saw Lydia talking to your dad. They seemed good." I nodded. "She's found peace, that's enough." Ava turned to me. "Do you ever regret it? That your first wedding didn't happen?" I smiled. "No, it wasn't a wedding, it was a warning." She laughed. "And this?" "This is the real beginning." Lydia eventually became a full-time counselor at the foundation. Jack sold the restaurant and quietly moved to a retirement village with Donna. My father joined the board of the foundation. He gives silent donations and hugs Ava like she's his own daughter. And as for me, I became a husband. But more than that, I became my mother's son.